East African agriculture has been hit by drought, and such countries as Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Nigeria are completely dependent on grain imports. Egypt is one of the largest importers of Ukrainian agri-products. Experts say that Russia's withdrawal from the grain deal will aggravate the situation in these countries.
This will greatly complicate our ability to feed hungry people. There are already 80 million people in the region suffering from severe food insecurity. This is affected by a whole range of factors. It's conflict, climate, economic shocks, and, of course, COVID. This suspension of the initiative will only exacerbate an already dire situation.
Russia has not only announced its withdrawal from the grain agreement, but also started mass shelling of Ukrainian grain storage facilities and port infrastructure. In the port of Chernomorsk and Odessa region, 60,000 tons of Ukrainian grain was destroyed due to Russian shelling on 18th and 19th of July. On July 24th, a night attack by the Russian army damaged 4 grain sheds in Odessa region. Following the Russian shelling of Ukrainian grain storage facilities, Dmytro Kuleba has called on Asian and African countries to respond to Russia's terrorism together.
Russia hit another Ukrainian grain storage overnight. It tries to extract concessions by holding 400 million people hostage. I urge all nations, particularly those in Africa and Asia who are most affected by rising food prices, to mount a united global response to food terrorism. Dmytro Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, on Twitter.
The Ukrainian foreign minister started his African tour with a visit to Equatorial Guinea. The head of the Ukrainian diplomacy met with the president of Equatorial Guinea, the president of the Chamber of Deputies, and the head of Senate of Parliament, and held talks with the country's foreign minister. Bilateral cooperation, President Zelensky's peace formula, and food security in Africa were the main topics of the discussion.
Дуже успішний був перший візит Кулеби, який був.
Kuleba's first visit, which was last autumn, was very successful, but it was partially interrupted because of Russian shelling. There was another visit in the spring, quite successful. East Africa, in particular, a successful visit to Ethiopia, where Kuleba met with the president of Ethiopia. This is such a weighty factor for many African states.
According to the German Foreign Ministry, acute hunger currently affects about 350 million people in the world.
Prices on international markets have already risen by 5 to 10%, and this is a critical situation for East African countries that have been buying grain from Ukraine to a lesser extent from Russia. Will they be able to provide that level of food, and will they be able to feed themselves? This is fraught with internal instability. It is fraught with mass riots, if not revolutions. In fact, it will lead to nothing good.
Ukraine's allies have strongly condemned new Russian strikes on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure and Moscow's threat to Black Sea shipping. The situation with the transport of Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea will be discussed at a meeting of a Ukraine-NATO Council. Reported by Anastasia Tarnavskaya, Yulia Bil, UATV News.